Good morning, preppers. We are all slaves. I know that's a bold statement, and it's something people don't want to think about, but it's true. And I first have to define what a slave is. A person who is forced to work for and obey another is considered to be their property, an enslaved person. As a verb, work excessively hard, and look at the example. After slaving away for 14 years, all he gets is $2,000. So what do I mean saying that we're all slaves? More specifically, I want you to understand that we're slaves to the system. And worst part, it's a system that we created. It used to be, back in the day, people would actually have their own little businesses, grow their own gardens, have their own little general stores, have a trade, build furniture, shoe horses, be a blacksmith. And even today, we still have freelancers and who are self-employed. However, those numbers are decreasing, and they've been decreasing for quite a while, as more and more people are forced to go from having their own type of business to working for corporations. A great example, in the 1800s, the average farm size was about 80 acres. Today it's about 445 acres. And worse yet, it's often leased out. Not to mention, we have corporate farming. And that's one of the things we're getting at. Corporations are flat out taking over. And it's not simply just trying to sell goods or try to get the best price. But of course, as we know, the big corporations have their hands in politics, controlling politics. And that's the scary part. Because again, we used to have just like family general stores. Now, Family Dollar is the norm. Dollar General, they're popping up everywhere because corporations are taking over. But that's entirely what I want to address. Ownership specifically is decreasing, even decreasing, especially in the real estate area. It's getting more and more difficult to afford a mortgage. Interest rates are going up, more and more difficult to get into a home. Why is that? George Washington said, freedom and property rights are inseparable. You can't have one without the other. Owning property at one time was the American dream. That's the whole thing about being an American, is to be able to actually be free and own your own property, because there's a lot of countries you can't own property specifically. But the slavery doesn't end there. We are slaves, more than anything else, in my opinion, to credit. Did you know half the population of the United States carries credit card debt each month? And the actual percentage rates in paying back those credit cards is enormous. And I don't understand through usury laws how they can charge such an exorbitant price. Even more so, 25% of the population leases a car. Go back a few years. That was unheard of. Leasing a car, you always bought one. It comes down to this. Owning a house, owning a car, paying all the bills each month, that was the norm. Those numbers are dropping more and more. People are more and more being sucked into slavery of debt. More and more being forced to pay off that debt, trying to pay off that debt, which a lot of times remains elusive, but more and more are actually having to go to corporations now and work for them because what they were doing before simply is not working, and they have to find a way to try to pay off the debt, if that's even really possible. So when a person's forced to work for and obey another, it's considered to be their property, an enslaved person. Let's do some little check marks. Forced to work to pay off debt, check. Forced to obey another at the corporations, check. And considered to be their property. I don't know what corporation or kind of job you have, but CEOs and businesses actually, they use their words very carefully. They want you to think you're part of their team, but you have to understand you're part of the team to make them money. Okay, it's not to make you money, that's a paycheck. It's to make them money. So they'll say things like, oh, it's our team, our people, our employees, our family, our workers. Everything is you belong to them. George Carlin was a master at putting common sense things, difficult terms into common sense so you can actually understand what's happening. I'm going to read a quote from one of his books. There's a reason education sucks, and it's the same reason that it will never, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got, because the owners of this country don't want that. Now, I'm talking about the real owners now, the real owners, the big wealthy business interest and that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have the freedom of choice. You don't. You don't have a choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, Congress, state houses, city halls. They got all the judges in their back pockets, and they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. We are slaves. We're slaves to this system that we've created. And as far as prepping goes, I don't know how we can get out of this one.